A small-town exam taker from the US finally graduated from college. She had planned to find a decent job in a big city, only to fall into a trap carefully set for her. The female lead, Gemma, came to Los Angeles after graduation, ready to find a decent job here. However, her identity as a small-town exam taker left her facing rejection everywhere. Gemma majored in acting. She had originally thought that with her excellent acting skills, she would soon be chosen by directors and become a leading actress. But the reality was that without any connections, no director was willing to hire Gemma. Gemma had to first look for other jobs to make ends meet temporarily, but the uniqueness of her major left her facing obstacles at every turn. The receptionist just glanced at her resume and told Gemma there were no suitable jobs for her here. Gemma wanted to keep trying, but it was all in vain. This made Gemma extremely sad. She hid in a corner and cried. If she couldn't find a job that day, she wouldn't be able to pay the rent for the next week, and she would end up homeless. Just as Gemma was drowning in despair, she heard a loud crash from a trash can not far away, but after looking carefully, she found nothing unusual. Gemma thought it was just someone throwing garbage casually, which hit the trash can. But while she was looking, Gemma caught sight of a job recruitment notice posted on a wall nearby. Gemma walked into that company to apply for a position. The person in charge of the interview introduced herself as Aunt May. She told Gemma that this was a sanatorium, and its main program was to treat clients through dreams. The job content wasn't complicated either. Basically, it just involved sitting in the duty room watching surveillance cameras, and notifying the front desk staff if there was an emergency. However, due to the special nature of the job, Gemma would mostly work night shifts, and the company would provide her with a corresponding night shift allowance for this. As long as she worked 5 night shifts, she would receive a $600 allowance. Most importantly, the salary for this job was paid weekly. Gemma agreed upon hearing this. After all, her top priority now was to quickly get the money ready for next week's rent. So Gemma successfully got the job and could start working the next day. Shortly after returning to her residence, Gemma fell into a deep sleep. In the evening of the next day, Gemma came to the sanatorium to work as required, and her colleague Noah explained the specific night shift work process to her. He took Gemma to a ward, and explained that all these patients were in a state of deep sleep. Through the dream program developed by the sanatorium, certain beliefs were subtly implanted into their consciousness. This makes these people firmly believe in these beliefs. This process takes about 6 weeks, and all Gemma needs to do is keep an eye on the monitoring screen, and notify the front desk as soon as any patient wakes up. Noah claimed that the hardest part of this job was the working hours. Basically, she would have to stay awake the entire night. If Gemma had an active social life, this job wouldn't be suitable for her. Gemma didn't say much about this. Later, Noah got her a set of work clothes. After changing into them in a hurry, Gemma started her first day on the job. At first, the job was full of novelty for Gemma, but as time went by, there was almost no change on the display screen, and Gemma couldn't help but feel tired. When it was time to hand over the shift at 6 in the morning, Gemma felt sleepy. She hurried back to her residence and lay down on the bed. But just then, Gemma's phone suddenly rang. She opened it impatiently, and found that the message was from her friend Carter. Carter told Gemma that a friend's film crew was preparing to make a movie, and he had recommended Gemma to go for an audition, which would be in a few days. Upon seeing this news, the star dream in Gemma's heart was rekindled, and the tiredness in her body disappeared completely. She immediately pulled out her old study notes from her suitcase, and kept reviewing the acting skills written in them, determined to get the first role of her life. Gemma didn't even slack off a bit during work. She often took out that notebook to check it, and this scene was just seen by her colleague Noah. Gemma didn't know how to explain, so she had to change the subject, and ask why Noah hadn't left yet that night. Noah said that a new patient had arrived that day, so he had to stay overtime to create a customized dream for the patient. As Noah spoke, he began to create the corresponding scenes on the computer. Gemma, standing beside him, saw that there were not only private jets, but also private yachts in the scenes. She felt envious and looked forward to truly having such a life in the future. Just then, Noah turned around and took a photo of Gemma. Soon after, a character model that looked very similar to Gemma appeared on the computer. It was obvious that Noah planned to make her a character in the dream too. Gemma was very resistant to this, and hurriedly asked him to delete it.
What the hell? How did you do that? Delete it.
Unexpectedly, Noah refused without hesitation. According to Noah, every employee of the sanatorium had their own virtual avatar in the system. This was specially designed to prevent clients from getting lost while receiving treatment in their dreams. If Gemma resigned someday, her avatar would also be deleted. Noah told her not to worry. After hearing his explanation, Gemma felt a little relieved. Not long after, Gemma, who had just finished work, rushed to the audition venue Carter had mentioned. She stood in the center of the stage and began to perform according to the script requirements. Because she was well prepared and had excellent acting skills herself, Gemma's performance won great recognition from the director and screenwriter. Both of them kept praising Gemma, but the director didn't give a clear answer on whether she would be hired. He just told her to go home and wait for further notice. Gemma waited like this for several days, but there was still no news from the film crew. She sadly thought she had been rejected, so her mind was filled with the scene of her performance that day. Gemma couldn't figure out what was lacking in her performance that day, which made her even distracted at work. Just then, she faintly saw a strange shadow appear in the corner of one of the monitoring screens. She hurried away from her seat to check, so she didn't see that shortly after she left, a figure stumbled out from the spot where the shadow had been on the screen. Gemma rushed to the corresponding ward to check, but when she entered the room, she found the client lying safely in the sleep pod. Gemma couldn't help but wonder if she was in such a bad state that she had hallucinated. Just as she was about to leave, she caught sight of that figure in the corner. Gemma was so scared that she quickly backed out of the room, and in her panic, she bumped into Winnie, her colleague who had come to take over the shift. Gemma told Winnie everything she had just seen. Winnie didn't believe her. She followed Gemma to the ward to check, but there was nothing inside except the patient. Winnie told Gemma that she might have hallucinated because she was too tired, and suggested that she go back and rest well. Gemma looked at the empty ward, feeling dazed, and couldn't help but wonder if she had really misseen. When Gemma got home, she lay down on the bed and fell asleep, and didn't wake up from the long dream until evening. For some reason, Gemma had been feeling extremely tired lately, and even rest couldn't help her recover her energy. She had originally thought this was just a side effect of working consecutive night shifts, but the truth seemed to be far more complicated. Gemma walked into the kitchen intending to have a glass of milk, but when she opened the milk bottle, she smelled a strong, unpleasant stench. Gemma was completely confused. She remembered putting the milk in the refrigerator just a short while ago, so it couldn't have gone bad this quickly. Unable to figure out the reason, Gemma decided not to dwell on it any longer, and poured the spoiled milk down the drain. But as she was pouring the milk, Gemma made another bizarre discovery. Her potted plant had withered away at some point. Gemma's eyes were filled with confusion. She clearly remembered watering the potted plant just the day before yesterday. How could it have withered so quickly, and to such an extent? Gemma sensed that something was wrong. She hurried to check the calendar, and was shocked to find that today was already the 21st. Nearly half a month had passed since she last watered the plant. Gemma couldn't understand why her memory had such a huge discrepancy. In the end, she could only attribute it all to the biological clock disruption caused by working night shifts for a long time, which had led to the current situation. After that, Gemma's condition got even worse. She believed it was all due to the long-term night shifts, so she decided to adjust her daily routine and stick to running for exercise every day. A few days later, her complexion really started to improve, and she looked much healthier. One evening, Gemma was on duty at the sanatorium as usual. While writing the shift handover record, she found a camera in a drawer. When Gemma turned on the camera, she found it was full of Noah's selfies. He was talking to himself in them like a narcissist. Gemma didn't keep watching. Just then, Aunt May and a few others suddenly appeared in front of her, holding up a patient between them. The patient was in a panic, begging desperately for them to let him go, his face filled with terror. Later, Gemma learned from Noah that the patient's condition was extremely serious. He even had a tendency to self-harm. Ordinary treatment methods no longer worked, so they had to use another, more special treatment program. Noah called it Cloud 9. This treatment only took 9 hours, and would supposedly solve the patient's problems. However, during the treatment, the patient needed to be injected with many drugs that were currently under strict control. So in a sense, this treatment was more like an experiment. Upon hearing this, Gemma realized that this sanatorium was far more complicated than it appeared on the surface. What Gemma didn't know was that by the time she realized this, it was already too late. She was already deeply trapped. In the middle of the night while on duty, Gemma fatally heard a strange noise coming from the corridor. She followed the sound to Ward 9, and found that the door there was actually wide open. Gemma was about to go over to check, when she saw Noah walk out of the room. Gemma exchanged a few polite words with him and was about to leave, when she suddenly heard bursts of screams coming from inside the room. She immediately became alert. Noah changed the subject, and asked if Gemma had seen his camera. Gemma hesitated and stumbled over her words for a long time. Noah didn't press further. He just told Gemma to go home and rest early that night. After returning home, Gemma's phone suddenly rang. It was her friend Carter calling. Carter excitedly told Gemma that there would be a party on Friday night, with many directors and screenwriters in attendance. He told Gemma to get ready, take this chance to network with these people, and if she was noticed by a director, she might even become the leading actress in their future works. However, Gemma said that she still had to work on Friday, and was afraid she couldn't attend the party. Carter told Gemma in a serious tone that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for her. If she wanted to become a star, she must not miss it. With that, he hung up the phone. After that, Gemma hesitated for a long time. She really didn't want to give up this opportunity, so she called her colleague Winnie, hoping Winnie could cover her shift on Friday. Upon hearing this, Winnie said that she also had matters to attend to, and really couldn't help Gemma. Moreover, if Gemma was caught leaving her post without permission, she would be fired. Caught in this dilemma, Gemma decided to take a risk. She figured that if she only left for an hour, she probably wouldn't be found out. After all, every night she just sat in front of the computer screen doing nothing until dawn. With that, Gemma made up her mind to skip work that night, to prevent others from finding out. She also needed to prepare the night's duty record in advance. On Friday, Gemma went to the sanatorium as usual. After everyone else had left, she quietly turned on the computer, found the previous duty logs, and planned to copy them into Friday's duty log. While searching through the logs, she saw Noah appearing in the operating room's surveillance footage with a mysterious woman. At first, Gemma thought the two were having an affair, but upon closer inspection, she felt something was wrong. First, the woman looked very similar to her. Second, Noah seemed to be performing surgery on her. This was obviously highly unusual, but because Gemma was in a hurry to get to the party, she didn't dig deeper. She paused the video, quickly copied the log into that day's file, then changed clothes in a rush and hurried to the party venue. With Carter's introduction, Gemma met several directors and screenwriters. Barring any accidents, she would get many roles afterward. During the party, Gemma also accidentally met an actress named Ellie, who had a tattoo of the sanatorium on her hand. Through conversation, Gemma learned that Ellie had also been a client at the sanatorium before. She curiously asked what kind of beautiful scenes Ellie had seen during the dream therapy, but Ellie told her,
I went into a coma and I almost died in there. They were ready to pull the plug and then...
Such a reply made Gemma surprised. Perhaps the news was so shocking that Gemma even forgot she had originally planned to skip work for only an hour. By the time she came to her senses, the party was already over. When she hurried back to the sanatorium, she saw Aunt May standing guard at the door, and Gemma realized something was wrong. Sure enough, Aunt May had found out about her skipping work, and announced on the spot that Gemma was fired. Later, Gemma returned to her apartment in low spirits. Just as she was about to wash up and go to bed, she heard a rustling sound coming from the living room. Gemma quickly went to the living room to check and found that the TV was just left on. She finally breathed a little sigh of relief. Just as Gemma turned off the TV, and was about to go back to the bedroom, she caught sight of something unusual in the corner. Gemma recognized it as the ghostly figure she had seen at the sanatorium before. She hurried into the bedroom and locked the door, while the monster banged wildly on the door outside. It was only after an unknown amount of time that the noise finally stopped. By this time, the sun had risen again. Soon after, Gemma heard a knock on the door. When she opened it, she found it was actually her good friend Carter. He had come to get the coat he had lent her the day before. Seeing Carter arrive, Gemma couldn't wait to ask if any director had taken a fancy to her, but Carter didn't give any reply. At this moment, Gemma's heart was filled with despair. She couldn't help but recall that she had even left her boyfriend, with whom she had been in love for 2 years, just to come to Los Angeles, yet her life had turned out so miserable. After thinking for a long time, Gemma decided to return to her hometown, and give up chasing that illusory dream of becoming a star. She had even already booked her plane ticket, but when Gemma returned to her apartment that night, she found the door wide open and the inside in a mess. Obviously, someone had been there. Gemma thought she had encountered a thief, but just then, a mysterious figure rushed out of the shadows and restrained her. When she regained consciousness again, she was already in an operating room somewhere. From the voice, Gemma could tell that the person was her colleague Noah. The reason he kidnapped Gemma was simple. It was because of the surveillance footage Gemma had seen not long ago. It turned out that Noah had been hiding from the sanatorium and conducting secret experiments on patients. That was why screams had come from Ward 9 earlier. Later, when Noah found out that Gemma had seen the footage, he feared the truth would be exposed, and thus decided to kill her. After that, Noah injected Gemma with some kind of drug. In a moment, Gemma felt the world spinning around her, and soon after, she lost consciousness completely. When Gemma opened her eyes again, she found herself still lying on the operating table, but the room was empty. She walked outside full of doubts, only to find that the entire sanatorium was also empty. This made Gemma feel strange. She couldn't remember the sanatorium ever being this deserted. Just then, an eerie sound came from behind her. Gemma hurried to turn around and check, only to see that terrifying ghostly figure again. Gemma fled the sanatorium in a panic, but when she got outside, she was shocked once more by the scene around her. The streets and buildings that had originally surrounded the sanatorium had all disappeared, leaving only endless darkness. Although Gemma had no idea what was happening, but she was certain that the situation was definitely not normal. She hurried to escape the sanatorium, but to her surprise, the next moment, the sanatorium began to twist continuously and finally disappeared. Immediately after, the environment around Gemma also changed. It was no longer endless darkness, but a corridor instead. Before Gemma could figure out what was happening, a man beside her told her to get ready, and then pushed her onto a stage. Looking at the surroundings, Gemma recognized this as the set of her favorite talk show, a place where only A-list celebrities could appear. The host enthusiastically congratulated Gemma on becoming a big star, and announced that the 2 TV series she starred in would have a grand premiere the following week. As she listened to the host's introduction, Gemma's face was filled with excited joy, but she soon realized that all of this was fake. She hurried to escape the talk show venue. As soon as Gemma walked out of the building, this structure, just like the sanatorium, twisted and deformed in an instant, and finally disappeared from her sight. She looked around and realized that Noah had put her into the dream system. Everything here was illusory. She tried to wake herself up, but no matter how hard Gemma tried, there was no response. Just then, the surrounding environment began to change again. This time, it turned into a restaurant, the place where she had worked back in her hometown. Then a man walked slowly out of the darkness, and Gemma recognized him as her boyfriend whom she had loved for 2 years. At this moment, countless memories flooded Gemma's mind. If she hadn't been so determined to become an actress, and eager to develop her career in a big city, she would never have left him. Now that her boyfriend had appeared again, Gemma's heart was filled with guilt. But the next second, Gemma was shocked by everything around her, because she saw that all the customers were faceless figures. Gemma stepped back in fear, and eventually, her boyfriend and the restaurant disappeared. Just like the previous buildings, at this moment, the monster that had chased her before appeared in front of Gemma again. But this time, Gemma didn't run away. She realized that this monster was the embodiment of her inner fears. Only by defeating it could she truly escape from here. When she approached the monster, it suddenly turned into ash and dissipated. Immediately after, Gemma opened her eyes again and found herself back in the operating room. She limped out of the room, and as she passed through the corridor, she found the wards were still empty. Fortunately, Winnie and others were still at the sanatorium's front desk. When Noah saw that Gemma had actually woken up, his face was filled with panic, and he hurried to flee the sanatorium. Winnie curiously asked Gemma why she had come out from inside, and through this, Winnie learned about what Noah had done. Winnie helped call the police. Soon after, Noah was arrested by the police, and the sanatorium was announced to be sealed off. Everything seemed to return to calm. After returning to her apartment, Gemma planned to go back to her hometown and spend the rest of her life with her boyfriend. But just then, she received a message. The sender told her that her previous performance had left a deep impression on the director, so the director hoped Gemma would play the leading actress role. Upon hearing this news, an uncontrollable excitement appeared on Gemma's face, and the movie ended with a burst of radio static. The movie Somnium was released this March. Its concept is very innovative, but the plot is rather poorly executed. The narrative is too abstract, making the whole story seem very fragmented. The movie may have a good theme, but due to the same narrative issues, it fails to convey it well. However, the final ending is still very thought-provoking. Does that burst of radio static mean that Gemma never actually woke up, but was just asleep in another dream? Thank you all for watching, and see you next time.